Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hey, welcome to Life Support. It's so good to have you with us. And we're telling stories again about Jesus and his incredible faithfulness to us and how when we rely on God, he does amazing things through suffering and trauma. And we're talking with Maggie Swanson and Tad Weiss. The book is called 25 Meters to God. And thank you so much for being here again. It's so good to have you both. Before we left off last time, we were telling your story, Maggie, about what happened in Spain. So maybe, Tad, you want to just give us a quick review of that, kind of get everybody caught up to what you experienced and what Maggie experienced there.
Yeah, so Maggie's accident happened in Spain on June 5th, 2014. She was crossing a busy road and was hit by a bus. The bus weighed 22 tons. It was traveling 37 miles per hour when it hit her, and it launched her 25 meters through the air. So only by the grace of God and Jesus performing a miracle is she here today. My wife Wendy and I flew over to Spain to be with her and just saw God do his thing. We had a front row seat to see him perform a miracle and saving her and healing her. 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks in Spain. We brought Maggie back. Another 3 weeks in hospitals in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and then her recovery continued here in the cities. She was 19 years old at the time, and almost 10 years have gone by since then.
Wow. And the book title, 25 Meters to God, is how far you flew, right?
Mm-hmm.
After the bus hit you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long way.
Yeah, we always say take a look at a swimming pool. It's either 25 yards or 25 meters long, and just imagine being launched through the air that distance, and it really puts it in perspective.
Wow. Or think of watching an NFL game on TV where they kick off to the end zone. That's a long, long way.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're still here is definitely by God's grace. And so, Maggie, you don't remember this whole thing. Tad, you were there to watch over her. Finally got her back here to the States. But what I found interesting is before you went there, you were thinking, you were running cross country, and you were thinking of extending that, and all of a sudden that came to an end. Did you think when you woke up that your running days were over at first?
So at first, I was really in disbelief, and I thought I was able to just go out for a run at that time. So it was definitely a healing process to first realize, like, you got to rebuild this. I was cleared to start running 4 months after my surgery, which was the fastest my surgeon had cleared anyone to run. So then it was just a gradual process of rebuilding my ability to run and my ability to compete.
And then you were getting ready to... Well, tell me about the Ironman thing first. Now, you, Tad, ran in one a long time ago. I mean, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
You know, at our age, everything's a long time ago.
That's right. That's right.
So that you were in the first one, the first big one, right?
Yeah. So there's an Ironman race in Madison, Wisconsin, and the first one was in 2002, and I did that when I was 39 years old, and Maggie was very young at that time. And so after the accident, Maggie got back into running, and she was getting such joy from being able to use her body again and to run. And the summer after the accident, so a year later, we were seeing how much joy that was bringing her. And my wife Wendy and I talked about it and said maybe she should try a triathlon. She knew how to swim, she knew how to run, so all we had to do was get her a bike, and we did. And Maggie did her first triathlon in the summer of 2015, and she loved it, and she did a great job. And that was kind of where triathlon took off. And she graduated in 2016 and started racing a little bit more, and she was getting better, and she started to have some really good results. So we kind of stumbled into triathlon as a way to help in her healing, and turns out that she was pretty good at it, and was bringing her such joy, and just I think the feeling that she wasn't damaged, that she could do something at a really high level, and I think it helped in her healing in so many other areas too.
Yeah, and so you're getting ready, and so you were telling me you're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, running, and what happened?
Yeah, so to back up, I was spending this summer training for the Ironman World Championships, which took place in October. That was in Kona. So as a part of that, I was going to race Chattanooga. So a 70.3, which is half of the Ironman distance for those who aren't familiar with racing.
So that's a 70-mile race.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say 70.3 miles.
Yep.
And the full Ironman is 140 miles, so it consists of a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and then a marathon.
Which is why my participation is to pray for the people who are actually running it. So,
it's a long race.
It's a long race, yes.
Yeah. So, but I was doing a half to prepare for the full. So had a great. My Achilles had been bothering me leading up to it, but I didn't think much of it. I was told you should be okay during the race. So go ahead, just go do it. You should be okay. So had a great swim, great bike. I was having a great run. Mile 8 of the 13-mile run, Achilles kind of started to bother me a little bit. I was like, 5 miles left, I got this. Mile 9, hurt a little more. It was like 4 miles left, I got this. Mile 10 and a half, felt something pop in my Achilles and fell on a hill which was beside me and was not able to complete the race.
Wow. And how long in advance of the race you were training for? How far away was that?
So Kona was mid-October. This was end of May. So 5 months.
So by traditional thinking, this was it. You weren't going to run in Kona at this point. Mm-hmm. But that's not the end of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. What's the rest of the story is?
Yeah. So rest of the story is I was taken to the hospital. I was taken back on a golf cart and then taken to the hospital, where I was told, okay, you probably ruptured your Achilles. Long story short, got an MRI, confirmed that, and then had surgery on June 2nd. So we assumed, and then I was on my back for 2 weeks, per Achilles healing.
Yeah.
And we assumed at that point, okay, this is it. I'm done. The season's over. Maybe I'll race Kona another year. And that's where, and so the 2 weeks passed, and I was able to get up, which was just a relief, first of all, to be off my back.
Right.
And that's where God started working. Through amazing PT. I'm having my PT done at Odom Health and Wellness, an amazing surgeon, Dr. Mike Anderson at Summit Orthopedics. And then through the help of God, the support of my family, just healing continued, and I kept getting better. We were still holding off at that point, not thinking I was going to be able to race Kona. But things just kept improving, really consistently, and Dr. Mike told me about a month out, 6 weeks out from the race, you might be able to compete in this. But we were still holding it loosely up until we went to Kona. Mm-hmm. We weren't sure I was going to be able to race, and even in Kona, it was still a question. But through the miracle of God, amazing medical help, I was able to compete.
Wow, it's amazing. And so you must have a very special body, because you survived the bus accident. Now here you are recovering quickly from Achilles. Achilles are in the news, of course. We've seen quarterbacks and other NFL players dropping like flies. And Aaron Rodgers made big news by saying he's going to be back in, 6 months, which was everybody laughed at him. And here you are 4 months. That's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was her whole triathlon journey, from starting in the sport back in 2015 and gradually getting better and better, and then starting the Ironman distance in 2021, and then in 2022 did another Ironman competition, which qualified her for Kona. So she had been training full time throughout these last few years, and was competing at a very high level. So she was in fantastic shape when the injury happened. But even so, all the doctors were saying, no, you can't come back that quickly. And I didn't think that she would be able to race. My wife Wendy did. Your husband Paul did. I knew that God could, that He could heal her if he wanted to. But by all normal human standards, it wasn't going to happen. But she had fantastic medical care, as Maggie mentioned, and kept getting better and better. And they cleared her to start running about 2 months out from the competition. So that's where we sat down with her coach and her physical therapist and said, okay, we got to map out a plan here to get her ready in 2 months to compete in Kona. And it was really up till the last week when we got on a plane where it's like, okay, we're going to go do the race. And she had a fantastic race. There were over 2,000 women competing in this competition, professionals on down to the best amateurs in the world. And Maggie came in 100th place in the race out of about 2,000 women.
Good for you.
A little over 10 hours on the race.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, as you were in the midst of this, were you thinking about your Achilles? Was it in the back of your mind, like
during the race?
Yeah.
It was.
I bet it was.
It was in the back of my mind. It was. It was very much in the forefront of my mind, and it was. That's what I was thinking about. Up until the race, the longest I had run was 20 miles. So it's a 26.2 mile distance. Mile 20 to 26, I would say my Achilles tolerance really went downhill. But at that point, I was just like, I just need to make it through 6 more miles. And I did, and I'm so grateful I did, and I'm so grateful that it held out. And I collapsed and had a number of people help me get from one place to another at the end of the race.
Well, it shows a lot of courage, I'll tell you, because that's what you were saying to yourself in Chattanooga. If I could just do 5 more miles.
Yeah, and that was my thought, was like, well, what if I do tear it again? But I pressed on. I knew I wasn't going to tear it. It was uncomfortable, and there's a difference between pain and discomfort.
Yeah.
And it's a very fine line, but I've definitely learned to walk that this summer.
Yeah, you can tell.
And Paul, your point too on there's obviously some parts of her body that are just made to heal faster than normal people do. Yeah. And so she has been gifted with that from God. But you look at the accident, and I also look at the Achilles tear and just say these aren't normal things, and for some reason God has intervened and has healed her. And I think that we're coming up on 10 years since the accident, and it's really been the defining moment in our lives.
Sure.
And it's as terrible as the accident was, everyone in our family would look back on it and say, yeah, it was the worst day in our lives in many ways, but it was also the best day in our lives. And it's and we feel like through Maggie's racing, through the book, through talking on podcasts, any opportunity that we have, we want to tell our story, but it's God's story. Point to Jesus, point to what He did, because without those miracles, we wouldn't be telling this story. And our hope is that people hearing Maggie's story, whatever they're going through, whether it's physical ailments or all the difficulties, the different things that we can go through in life, that through trust, through faith, through the body of believers, through perseverance, that you can overcome these things, and that God will show you amazing things along the way, along the journey. And that's our encouragement for the listener is everybody's going through something, and Jesus is the way to help you through it.
Yeah, that's a good message. And God's not so much, I think the outcome, of course, is important. We always focus on the outcome, but God has got a million things that he's doing in the midst of the process, and the ripple effect of the people that you run into, the people that you hear the story, the people that your family, all these people are all being affected by this, which of course is also part of God's plan for this. Maggie, do you have any after effects from the accident now, 10 years out?
Nothing physical. As far as after effects go, to go another direction, God has brought so much good from the accident. I can honestly say that I can look back and say I'm grateful that the accident happened, because so much good has come out of it. I have a new career. I have triathlon. I met my husband Paul after the accident. Just so many good things. I'm closer to my family, and our dogs came out of the accident. My parents got their dog as a therapy dog for me.
Oh, yeah.
And
you've got yours.
And
now.
I've got mine now because of him.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as you talk about it, I think that those of us who've gone through things that are difficult, we wouldn't wish them on anyone else, certainly, but we can honestly, as a believer, look at them and go, yeah, I wouldn't know God the way I know God now. And I don't know if glad it happened is fair, but something happened where my life was changed in a way that I'm glad God put that in my place.
Yeah, you certainly wouldn't wish it to happen,
right,
to your daughter or to anyone,
right.
But it did, and you need to deal with it. And we're also jumping over a lot of years here. The accident happened in 2014. Maggie was married in 2019. There were 4 years there where she didn't date. She wanted to. She's rebuilding her body. She's rebuilding her mind. There were some long years and some tough days and a lot of questions on, to God and to us as her parents. And, that's faith and trust and hope, is that there's going to be good that comes out of this. And I think that's a big part of her story, and also endurance racing, is these are long events, and there's a lot of training and a lot of time that goes into these good results, and I think that's been proven out in her faith life too.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is easier. We just jump ahead, and we want to, in a short forum like this, we have to get to the point. But I'm sure there were many moments when you all paused and said, I wonder, we know God is in this, but what's actually going to be the result of all this? And that's where God really kind of pulls strings on us and said, do you trust me or not? And I'm going to show you that you can trust me. And I think that's part of the Christian journey, for sure. And then likewise, if, maybe someone's listening right now and they're saying, well, that didn't, my outcome wasn't good. Like, I lost somebody. Or, well, it doesn't mean God, it wasn't in it. God is God. He'll do what he thinks is best, and I don't want anyone to be discouraged if their thing didn't turn out, to the positive.
Yeah, there's one part of the book where around the summer of Maggie's accident and recovery, a good friend of ours lost their 19-year-old son. So, here's Maggie healing beautifully and amazingly over the summer, and he has an accident which on the surface looked like it was 1/10 of the magnitude of hers, and he died. And how do you make sense of that? And I wrestle with it in the book, but it's one of those things that I can't fully answer.
Right. I mean, we lost our 21-year-old, and to ask the why question gets you really nowhere. You can't help but at some level ask it. But really the question becomes, what do you want me to do now, God? Because to ask why, you're getting into the deep mysteries of God, and he has a secret sovereign will, and he's never promised us that he has to tell us why. We're probably not going to understand it anyway. So I've learned just to focus on, okay, what do you want me to do? And to pray that God keep bringing good out of this. And he has promised those things. He will do those things. All right, you mentioned the book. We're going to mention it again. 25 Meters to God. Where can I get a copy?
We have a website, which is 25meters.com. So the number 25 meters, meters.com. Go to the website and you'll see a nice big button there, buy the book. It's available through our publisher, Redemption Press. It's available other places too, but Redemption Press is where I would encourage you to get it. And it's available in all forms, hardcover, soft, ebook, and audiobook.
Okay, and for us isolated Americans, how far is 25 meters?
Yeah, so 25 meters, a meter's, I think, 1.09 yards, so it's 28 yards. And as I've mentioned, the distance of a swimming pool, or take a look at a football field and the 28-yard line to the end zone, and you'll get a sense of what that is. About the distance of a basketball court. So
yeah.
A long distance to fly. We just believe that Jesus was on the end there, ready to catch her and to cushion her landing, and it's been an awesome experience to have a front row seat to see Jesus perform a miracle. And all I would say is, all those miracles you read about in the Bible, they're true, and they're still happening today. Yep,
good. And not that I watch a lot of football. I don't want to ever claim that, although I probably watch a lot of football this weekend. I'm going to be thinking about this. I really am, because I'm going to be staring at the field going like, wow, that is a miracle.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you're okay. And thank you for sharing your story, Maggie. Ted, thank you for sharing your story as well.